What is up, all you CISSP wannabes? Welcome. This is IT Dojo CISSP Questions of the Day. I am Colin Weaver, and each and every day I'm going to give you two questions for you to ponder and think about while you're continuing your studies. Let's get right to it. Here comes question number one. Cryptography provides you a variety of different ways to protect your information. When used correctly, this is a big list, brace yourself. Which of the following represent things that cryptography can do for you? So some of those things it cannot do, some of them it can. I want you to tell me which is which. Of the choices that are listed there, 6 of them are correct. Go ahead and click pause because that's a lot of words. And when you're ready, we'll break it down. All right, first option there, detect if a spreadsheet has been modified in an unauthorized way. Absolutely, cryptography can do this because you can keep a hash of a file, and then prior to modifying that file, prior to looking at the file or doing anything with it, you can validate that that hash has not been modified. Now, the trick to that would be to make sure that the hash is protected, because an attacker could just as easily modify the file and then hash it and replace the hash of the now modified file with the hash wherever it is you have it stored. So you need to make sure the hash is protected if you're going to use it as a mechanism to do that. Second option there says a Windows user is trying to connect to a Linux server using HTTP. And you want to have that be a confidential connection. Absolutely, that's something that cryptography can do for you. And that's really what TLS and SSL are all about, is going in and having those encrypted channels of communication. Third option there says prevent a user from deleting a file they have no permission to view. In general, no. Cryptography will not prevent you from doing that. File permissions are really going to prevent a user from doing that. It is perfectly plausible that a file is encrypted and the user does not have the keys for it, but they can still delete the file. If you want an easy test case for this, if you're using a Microsoft computer, go use EFS to encrypt a file on your computer, and then deny yourself permission to that file, and then go and give permission to another user, and then have that user try and open the file. They won't be able to, and then but have them try and delete the file, and they'll be successful. Next option says provide a high degree of assurance that a remote system is who it claims to be or who they say they are. Absolutely. We can use certificates to prove the identity of a remote computer. This really all hinges upon having it be, from a trusted public key authority, a public key infrastructure signed by a trusted authority that's gone in and done that. But very much so, we use cryptography all the time to validate the identity of a remote service, or remote system, or a remote user. Next option is recover data that was changed in an unauthorized manner. In general, no. There may be some super fancy stuff that's out there, but if you want to recover data that was modified in some way that you don't consider to be appropriate, you need to have backups of your data. So that's not one of the ones that we're looking for here. Next item on the list says prevent somebody who has stolen a hard drive from adding that hard drive to another computer in order to access its data. Absolutely, we can use cryptography to defend against that, because we can go in and encrypt the contents of a disk. So even if somebody moves the computer, if even somebody moves the disk from one computer to another, they won't be able to access its contents. Next item on the list says check to make sure a script has not been modified before allowing it to be executed. Again, this falls back into the category similar to the Excel spreadsheet scenario, where we can have a hash of the file and we can validate the file against the hash before executing it to make sure that it's free from modification, or that it's a known good. So absolutely, we can use cryptography to do something like that as well. Next item on the list says reduce the effectiveness of ICMP-based denial of service attacks. Cryptography is not really going to help you in this particular realm. And in general, cryptography is not going to be in benefit to you in preventing any kind of denial of service-based attacks. Now, that's not 100% true, but this particular example asks about ICMP, and cryptography is not going to defend you against that. Second to the last item on the list says prevent an authorized user from exfiltrating data from your protected network. Unfortunately, cryptography is not going to be a good defense for that in all circumstances. Certainly, if there's data that they're not supposed to access, you could have that data be encrypted, and then if they were to exfiltrate it, they're just exfiltrating encrypted data. But if it's data that they are authorized to view, if they really want to get that data off your network, they're going to get it off your network. We can do all kinds of data loss prevention things to try and mitigate that risk, but the simple fact of the matter is that you gave them keys. You let them in. You've given them access to the data. And if they really, 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 really want it, they're probably going to figure out a way to get it out of your network. And no amount of encryption is going to save you from that. And then the very last option on the list says assist you in complying with regulatory data security requirements. You betcha. Okay, you got a lot of verbiage out there floating around talking about data that has to be protected when it's in motion, data that has to be protected when it's at rest, and data that has to be protected when it's in use. And cryptography is your friend in those circumstances. If you need it protected while it's at rest, then you could certainly encrypt it when it's sitting on a flash drive or on a hard drive. If you need to encrypt it while it's in motion, you can wrap it up inside some encryption, an IPsec VPN or an SSL VPN, or just TLS or something like that. So very much so, and cryptography is something that we use to help us comply with regulatory requirements that are out there for different industries. Question number 2 today comes at you from the world of risk management, and it says that when you are making decisions about how to best secure your computers and your servers and your environment, which of these options is the most important thing for you to consider? Click pause, give those a read, decide what you think the best answer is, and when you're ready, click play and we'll talk it through. Okay, first option up there says that security should not decrease the usability of your system. That's like saying doors shouldn't slow you down when coming into your house. If you put security in place, there's going to be an impact, okay? Now, the impact may be negligible, okay? It may be a small amount, but the simple fact of the matter is when you put controls in place, they have an end sum of decreasing the availability of resources on your system, or they consume other resources, or they slow you down in some way, shape, or form. You don't always, because computers are so fast, you don't always notice it, but it's there, okay? So it's not really plausible to think that you can put a security mechanism in place and not have it have some sort of an impact on your system. Now, we certainly want to manage that impact, but that's not what we're looking for right here. This answer choice says, no impact. Next choice up says intangible risks should be mitigated first. If you pick that one, please put a comment in below and I'll figure out how to come and smack you in your head, because that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. If it's intangible, how can you say that that's something that should be a priority for you? So no. Next option up, it should cover all regulatory requirements. I don't even necessarily know if I know what that means. Okay, all regulatory requirements for all regulations that exist everywhere? I don't think so, because one, those don't apply to me in my line of business, and there's a pretty good chance that a lot of them don't apply to you. You certainly want to comply with the regulatory requirements that are applicable to your world. If you're in the healthcare industry, or you're in the financial services industry or something like that, and you got regulatory requirements that say you got to do certain things, well, yeah, comply with those. But this says all regulatory requirements, and I don't really know exactly what that means, so no, that's not the answer. Second to the last item on the list says that costs should be managed and should make sense for the given risk. Absolutely. Whenever you're considering putting a mitigation mechanism in place or reducing the risk that a system has, you have to factor in what the cost of it's going to be and whether or not it makes sense, whether or not you're going to get value for it. Now, I realize sometimes things get intangible and you have to deal with those kinds of scenarios, but cost should always be a factor that you're going to have to go in and ultimately look at. So again, the cost of it's important, the effectiveness of the countermeasure, and you've got to be able to correlate that to what the value of this asset is. How much money does it make for you? How well does it help you achieve the mission? How much time did it take you to develop it? How much time would it take you to recreate it? How much would it cost you to buy a new one? All those kinds of things get factored into this. And then the very last choice on the list is the craziest of the choices, where it says that all risks should be eliminated by your mitigating mechanisms. And it's if it hasn't already, it should be pounded upon you over and over and over again that completely eliminating risk is not something that's considered to be possible, except for choosing not to participate. And as I tell people on a regular basis, the only way that I know to make sure that my laptop never gets stolen is to not own a laptop. As soon as I choose to own a laptop, theft of that laptop becomes a risk that I have to deal with. So I need to mitigate the likelihood that theft is going to occur. I can't eliminate it, but I can mitigate it. Okay, and so whenever, particularly as you're looking at exam-related stuff, anytime you see such brazen statements that talk about the complete elimination of risk, that's probably not going to be your best choice as far as an answer, because we can't do those things, and those always and hardline kind of statements are just too aggressive in questions like this that you might encounter on an exam. So definitely not the right answer for you there. Really, again, you want to make sure that you're balancing the cost and the effectiveness of a particular mitigating solution with whatever the value of the asset is. That's really kind of one of the key components of going in and doing risk management, is making sure the stuff makes sense to do. Okay. All right, so that's it for today. First question was on really what can encryption do for you. and understanding sort of what its limitations are versus what its awesomeness is. And then the second question was just kind of fundamental ideas of risk management and what can we expect from risk management and what should we be focusing on first or primarily with doing that. So I hope that you like these questions. I hope they were helpful for you as you're going in and doing your studying, giving you some insight as to things that you might encounter on an exam or on the exam. Please be sure to click on the like button below. I'll appreciate that. Also subscribe so you get these questions every single day, because I do them every single day. And then I'm going to be back tomorrow, so I'll see you then.